give that a shot next time.
Perk up the wrestlers a little bit.
Perk up the wrestlers.
Perky wrestler.
Wow. All right.
Nobody wants saggy wrestlers.
It's true.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mike's, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. And we begin, as we do each and every week, by saying hello. I can get it out. Each and every week to my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Tally ho.
Ruben Bressler.
Hi there. How are you doing?
Much better now that we got through our little intro bit there, which is fun. So
It takes some time.
It sucks when the huge stuff comes out on Thursday, and
Yeah.
we're here. We're here to talk about all the Magic stuff, and then something crazy happens on Thursday morning. Everyone loses their minds. We can't talk about it. That's annoying. However,
but I do want to say that Blake Rasmussen gave us a plug on the daily update today, and he said that he enjoys our show more when we don't have as much to talk about or when it's a slow news week. So just think about that.
Really?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty interesting take. But what we do every week at this point, thanks to our lovely sponsor, is we give away some cool stuff. And at CoolStuffInc.com. And this week, we're going to talk a little bit about Archenemy. And we figured, you know what, we should just give away a set of Archenemy Nicol Bolas, because there was a super cool video made by, the Commander Cast guys, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was super, super cool. Man, they do an amazing production on that stuff. I know exactly how long it takes to do all that stuff, and man, they do the work, and that is fantastic. I've put links in both of the magical chats for Twitch and for YouTube, so if you guys want a chance at winning a set of Archenemy Nicol Bolas, please enter so I can give you one. If you are foreign, unfortunately, I can't send it there because of restrictions that Wizards gives us, so I'll give you store credit, which will be fine. That said, we got to get started with, Wizards has come after various people for leaking things. There was the Judge thing. There's that Turn 1 Thoughtseize idiot dude. You leak stuff, they're going to come and get you. And every once in a while, the killer is inside the house. Wizards posted these 3 ridiculously awesome spoilers.
Whoopsies.
Well, maybe 2 awesome spoilers and 1 okay spoiler. We'll get to it. They did it themselves. They did it in it's like the French version of the standard showdown site or something. And not only that, 8 hours plus later, it was still there. You could still enter the URL at wizards.com and get to it.
It was still there.
That's weird.
It was Wizards of the Coast Covfefe.
Just
didn't take it down.
Just couldn't do it. And we're left going, what's a Covfefe? And also, why these cards being in a standard showdown type, carousel, which is where these came out. We'll talk about in just a second. Again, says to me that these are some of the best cards in the set. I mean, you don't tout bad cards in a standard showdown carousel. Now, I think one of the 3 cards is there because it's the other Planeswalker in the set. But let's just go ahead and get started. Now, what happened was on Thursday morning, everyone started losing their minds because these 3 screenshots showed up, and everyone's like, blah blah, this is fake, blah blah blah. Let's just get started with the big boy. Nicol Bolas, God Pharaoh, is a black, red, blue, and 4 generic mana, 7 loyalty mythic planeswalker. It has 4 abilities because of course it does. Nicol Bolas' +2 is to target opponent exiles cards from the top of his or her library until he or she exiles a non-land card. Until end of turn, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. +1, each opponent, and that matters in Commander, each opponent exiles 2 cards from his or her hand, which can be pretty sweet in multiplayer. -4, Nicol Bolas, God Pharaoh, deals 7 damage to target opponent or creature an opponent controls. Okay, it's a Super Bowl. -12, exile each non-land permanent your opponents control. Because screw them, that's why. So, here we have an insane Planeswalker that starts with 7 loyalty for your 7 mana. It's like, what? It's sort of it's sort of Shaheen Sarani's wet dream over here of could it just do everything? Could it just solve all the problems?
I can't unsee that.
It does do everything.
Shaheen's waking up in the sweats and just it's got seven loyalty and it does things.
Yeah.
And all the Aetherworks Marvel players are just like, well, maybe I should just go like one Chandra, one Nicol Bolas, or as soon as Ulamog leaves, we can just go full Nicol Bolas, and that'd be okay. Wouldn't turn 4 this thing be totally fair? I mean, we are already casting friggin' Eldrazi on turn 4, and that's a whole other mess that we may touch on. But Nicol Bolas, God Pharaoh, I am confident it was absolutely put in the standard showdown carousel because this card is sweet, exciting. It's already up to like $30-something in pre-orders. Like, this card is the real deal, not only just for constructive, powerful goodness, but in casual, again, each opponent exiling 2 cards, that's kind of a big deal for those who enjoy the 100-card format that we will also argue about here in a little bit. But first, Aaron, tell me how you feel about the God Pharaoh.
I was really excited about this card, and the card that I thought of, I know you mentioned that some people, their first thought was, what about Aetherworks Marvel? My first thought was, what about Oath of Nissa? A lot of people were lamenting that, the mana cost might be a little prohibitive or things of that nature. Oath of Nissa standard legal. I've seen people do things with Oath of Nissa in Modern. It's not hard to get 7 mana when that mana can be of any color, and you can use it to cast a Planeswalker. I think this card is absolutely going to see play, and I think it needed to be good. We've talked about that before, about how Wizards has certainly placed a lot more emphasis on making key characters and key moments be good. Archangel Avacyn, how disappointing would it have been to have that character and that card be bad, And so I think Nicol Bolas had to be good. It does feel a little pushed, if you will. The idea, if I'm understanding this correctly, of Nicol Bolas into marveling into something else, that can happen, right? Like,
into marveling something else. Why?
Because you took your opponent's Marvel.
Oh, you took your opponent's. Oh, nice
you
Marvel.
You hit Marvel off your opponent's +2.
Hashtag nice Marvel.
Yeah. So yeah. I just see some really absurd things with this. I think the art's beautiful. Shout out to Raymond Swanland. This card's a home run. It's great.
Ruben?
Card's good.
Card's whatever. It's got mana. It does stuff. I don't know.
To temper Evan's expectations. So, in the context of current standard, this card isn't gonna see any play. Like, none of the abilities are good against Marvel, and none of the abilities are good against zombies.
Okay, I think your haircut went a little too close there because you lost some of your mind.
+2's like fine against aggro and mid-range decks. The +1's good against like control decks. The -4 is obviously insane. And the -12 is neat, and never going to be relevant. I mean, it's quite a powerful card that's never going to be good, but sorry, never not going to be good.
Wow.
It's not going to be good. Wow. I said it backwards. I apologize. It is always going to do something positive and demand your opponent's attention the turn that it comes into play. The fact that it protects itself on 2 different fronts, with one of the abilities as well as having the super high toughness loyalty, is super relevant. And you're right. Once Ulamog leaves, this will be the thing that you want to hit with your Aetherworks Marvel. Sure. The problem is that Ulamog doesn't leave for a while. Again, this doesn't do anything against Marvel, really, and this doesn't do anything against zombies, really.
Well,
like, what are we doing against zombies with this deck? We're killing one of their 2/2s and then dying to 10, or we're making them exile 2 cards from their hand and then they just refill with Crypt Breaker. Like, this card doesn't do much against that style of deck. And then your opponent just has an Ulamog on turn 4, and then you're looking at your Nicol Bolas and you're like, oh, okay, sure, why not?
Well, right, okay.
I'm just saying, this card's quite good. It's well worth the what did you say, 30? It's probably a $30 card.
At this point, yeah.
This card reminds me a lot of Ugin. In which it wasn't a 4-of, it was quite powerful, and the games in which you survived to cast Ugin, it oftentimes won you the game, but not always. So, I mean, it's really good, and I'm glad that they made Nicol Bolas, the big bad guy of the story, a really cool card with 4 really powerful abilities. But I'm just saying, temper your expectations there, kids.
But just like Ugin, though, you brought up a good point about that. When Ugin was a thing, though, even though it was expensive, you still had tools to keep the board clear or to keep yourself alive, to buy you some time until you could drop Ugin. And obviously in the colors that make up Nicol Bolas, blue, black, and red, you've got counter spells, you've got kill spells, you've got board wipes. That if you really wanted to make a control deck or a control shell, and have that serve that Ugin role, I think this card could still do that, and you'd be able to stay alive until that time.
I mean,
I'm a little sad I'm a
Go
little
ahead.
sad that Dark Imitations doesn't do as much with this Nicol Bolas as I was hoping
No.
that it would.
It doesn't really have the same mechanics. I think when Wizards is going to do something like, hey, you're going to cast a Bolas Planeswalker spell or whatever next
Right.
set, maybe it has something to do with whatever the spell cares
It
about
puts
a Bolas.
one extra loyalty
Yeah.
counter on, which means you get to use the -4 twice. Just
That's
do
nice.
it.
Like maybe if it pushes
Okay.
over a threshold or something,
Right.
where
Yeah.
like, oh, because I play Dark Animations, that means I get to do this when it comes out versus that.
Right.
Okay, like Dark Animations is basically is just unplayable as when they made it, so that's
Oh.
great.
Yeah.
Alright,
Whatever.
Either way, first of all, we live in a world. Let's not put the blinders on too hard, okay? Because there's going to be a world where Zendikar is not there anymore, where Shadows
Right.
isn't there anymore. And when Zombies goes away and Ulamog goes away, I think this absolutely, if Aetherworks Marvel is still even legal, like this
Sure.
past weekend, something like it only made one, top 8 of one GP, but it won the GP. Was that right? And
Well, Copenhagen, it wasn't in the top 8, but it was all over the 9 through 32.
right,
Yeah.
it was like all of 9 through 32 or something crazy. It was
Pretty much.
It was crazy. So like something like the metagame is like 50% Marvel, like the whole thing. 800 people show up to Omaha. Like all right, like I know it's Omaha. No offense, Omahans, but like,
Oh.
but just saying. I feel like that number was a little bit suppressed, and we're in this weird repeating history. Can you just ban Marvel? But if you ban Marvel, all the people who invested in Marvel now hate Magic. Wizards, please add cards to Standard. I don't even know if that's the best way to do it, but Lord God, maybe we could stop cutting things and people will be happier. Anything, because again, we're just everyone just wants these weird are the best card in Standard or the worst card in Standard cards to kind of go away, but whatever.
Speaking of bans, did you see the amazing cosplay from GP Vanilla?
Mm-hmm.
There was a young woman who cosplayed as Sahili Rai, and she had a sign that was like, "Have you seen my cat?" And it was like, hates vehicles, white fur.
Yeah.
It was
Wow.
fantastic. And
Big
shout out
teeth,
to the
angry.
Yeah,
it was
fantastic.
that was really funny.
And also too, while we're on the subject of Nicol Bolas, I don't remember the young man's name off the top of my head. I think it might have been Raymond. He had an amazing Nicol Bolas cosplay.
God Pharaoh.
he got retweeted
thing
by
he's
the
been
official
building for like
Magic
2
account.
years. Yeah, that thing is
Beautiful.
great.
Just it was literally like armor. It was epic. Like if you get a chance, go check it out because it was gorgeous.
It is pretty epic. Yeah. But back to Nicol Bolas.
Back-
It's like
To Nicol Bolas, I think it's a very much a standard playable card. I think if you're going to build a Grixis control deck, it's a card that you want in it. I agree with you. It feels an Ugin-esque role. Ugin's still worth $30 and has been out of standard for a very long time.
well, and Ugin also wraths the turn you play it, right?
Yeah,
sure.
You're gonna need a real specific shell. Like the mana's gonna have to work, obviously. Like let's see what the lands are like in Hour of Devastation if
Gosh.
there's a cycle.
Ruben, it's almost like you would need a damnation.
You definitely would need
That was
a
weird.
destroy all creatures effect.
And if only
Of
if
some
Wizard
kind.
had literally spoiled it for themselves
That would be
on their
quite
own
convenient.
site. For
If they
God's
did
sake.
that would be quite convenient for us to talk about.
Bontu's Last Reckoning is a rare in Our Devastation. It's a black, and 1 generic mana sorcery. And its first 3 words are destroy all creatures. Let me repeat. 3 mana, black, generic, sorcery, destroy all creatures. Lands you control don't untap during your next untap step. That's the big drawback. That's where we're at.
Big drawback.
Big draw. Now let's not. I mean, no, seriously. Honestly, you're playing most of 6 mana for this, rather than 3 mana for this. However, boy, is cost reduction sexy. It's always sexy. As a Magic player who plays Magic for God knows how long, a bunch of my lifetime now. You show me something ridiculous that I can pay very little for, I'm going to get excited about it. Maybe it's broken, but I'm still going to get excited about it.
Sure.
A little pee is still coming out. That's how it works. And sure enough, flowing. And we have all right. So first of all, Bontu's Last Reckoning. Take a look at this card. And this was mentioned to me by some of my graphic designers. The use of white space in this card is amazing. It's beautiful.
Victor Adame Mingus.
Victor Adame just destroyed it. Like, you don't necessarily need to fill the entire frame with stuff all the time. Sometimes it's really powerful just to have Bontu there just like pissed off and screaming her head off. Is that right?
Her.
and she's pissed. And is that dude? I can't tell if that dude is impaled on that.
Oh, they're impaled.
Okay,
they're
good.
Impaled.
Like shish kebabi-esque, like
yeah.
the shish kebab the dudes. So after this hit, and everyone kind of lost their minds, and oh my god, 3-mana wrath, and that's fantastic, and we're all high-fiving each other. Someone mentioned, hey, what if this were like a cycle? Like, couldn't this be a cycle? Like, we already have, what's the blue one that takes an extra turn?
Savor the moment.
Savor the moment for 2 blue and a generic mana, in fact.
Yep.
Savor the moment, take an extra turn, you skip your next untap step. Okay, that's really interesting. What if the red one is some like ridiculously overpowered, I guess, burn spell, 2-mana charge or something. What if the white one is a 2-mana oblivion ring? What if the green one is some stupidly powerful like a 2-mana 5/5, like
or an over
or a ramp spell, like 1 green like 1 green rampant growth, but you don't untap next turn. Probably still too busted, but still
that's way too busted.
But maybe, green and generic mana at that point, you're like, it's got to be that right, and obviously Wizards does nothing but play around with this all day, which is what's the right mix to make it the coolest and the sexiest and the most interesting, and sometimes I think with Bontu's Last Reckoning, the most powerful. So Aaron, we have a giant crocodile woman who is chomping up with her shish kebab sword, dude people on it, and is ready to kick Nicol Bolas' butt for what he's trying to do to the plane. How you feel about it?
Well, I actually interpreted it a little differently. Based on the flavor text, I was under the impression that she's trying to somehow like get in his graces. Like maybe I'm wrong, but it says to the last, Bontu wanted only to be first among the God Pharaoh's subjects. And I really like this card. I think the art is beautiful. Victor did a wonderful job. I like what you mentioned, Evan, about the fact that you don't need to use all of the space. And I think by not using all the space, you really kind of illustrate what the storyline's trying to tell you, that if you've read the story today, you kind of understand what's happening with the God of Pharaoh's return, and you do get a sense of like isolation. Take 2. Isolation and devastation. You really see just blank. You just see space around her, which really kind of illustrates the desperation and everything like that. I love the art. I love the design space that this takes up, like you mentioned as well. And I think there's a little bit of flavor here. I'm going to spoil the story a little bit here. We do learn in today's story, which Alison Lure was killed, by the way, that the gods existed before Nicol Bolas got there, and he basically killed them, wiped their memories, and brought them back. And so to do something that's hers, destroy all creatures is very Bontu, but the lands not tapping could be sort of that memory fugue, kind of shaking the dust off kind of thing, not really sure what's going on. I think that's a really nice nod to the flavor of what's going on with the gods. And if it is a cycle, I think that makes really good sense.
Now, can I just jump in? And we talked a little bit about this in the pre-show, but Alison Lure's, by God, is amazing.
Yes.
She is really the best Magic flavor lore writer I have ever read, and I've read a lot of it over the years, whether it was in comic book form.
You can take the word magic out of that. She's the best flavor lore writer that I am aware of, and I read a good amount of D&D stuff. I'm not an expert, but I read a good amount of stuff that folks put out, and she, every single thing is aces.
I have tried to read other people's sort of stories and their lore stuff, and I'm not trying to throw any shade, and we're not trying to spill any tea. I'm just trying to say when I find stuff that's great, I like to point it out. And if Alison were to hear this, or were to hear this from somebody who watches this, you're doing an amazing job. Literally every story that she's written, I've been really impressed with. It just feels like she's head and shoulders above everyone else.
Yeah.
But Ruben, how do you feel about this 3-mana wrath? Is it good? Now, of course, there's these people who are going to say it's bad because you're paying 6 mana for it.
Right.
But...
So there's a couple things that, first of all, I played a Savor the Moment deck at States one year that was based around planeswalkers. And living in a world in which planeswalkers exist means that if you have a planeswalker down and you cast this, you still get to do stuff on your turn.
Right.
So this allows you to activate your Nicol Bolas, activate your Jace, or whatever you need to do, and still play Magic during the next couple turns. Very similar to how the Pact cycle worked. It allowed you to tap out and then put your money on layaway. This lets you do something similar in a slightly different sense. From a flavor standpoint, I'm really hoping that these are a cycle, because Bontu's Last Reckoning makes you exert yourself in a way. Which I think is kind of neat.
Which is cool. This is basically exerting spells, which I think is great.
Yeah, exert spells. Yeah. Which I think is kind of like a cool little thing. And I really hope that it's a cycle, because it lets Wizards play around with mana reduction in kind of a safe way. Save of the Moment didn't break anything. And so they revisited that in this sort of sense, and we're like, well, what if we take another iconic, really powerful effect and put it on a Save of the Moment style card like Bontu's Last Reckoning? I think that it's possible to do things like that with cards. Maybe not Overrun. Overrun is maybe a little bit much here, and you obviously can't do it with some of the more iconic spells like Armageddon. Armageddon, destroy all lands, your lands don't untap. Doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Wouldn't we all like it, but wouldn't we all never like that ever, please, thank you.
Right, exactly. But you can certainly do something along the lines of, deal 4 damage to target creature or player for 1 red mana, your lands don't untap.
You can probably do 2 mana for that. A 2 mana char.
You can do 2 mana. Sure, 2 mana char.
Right.
Something along those lines. Still very powerful, and that one would be probably way more dangerous than the Damnation.
It's true.
You could do Tidings, for example. You could do colorless blue, draw 4 cards, your lands don't untap. Right? That's pretty similar to Opportunity. You're paying 3 and then 3, draws 4 cards. So there's stuff that, I'm interested to see if this is a cycle. Even if it's not, Bontu's Last Reckoning is right up my alley. I think that it's a necessary card. You need to have a Wrath of some kind, and this one gives your deck a interesting deck building requirement in order to use effectively.
Well, I mean, it also rewards things like artifact mana, which means it could very well be better in older formats that can rely on that type of stuff. And it's
Green
hilarious.
One is interesting because you have so many mana elves that are available to you also.
Exactly, right? So whatever the green one is, I'm guessing it's going to be creature-based or go find some lands or something.
I'm hoping it's harmonized. I think that colorless green, draw 3 cards, and your lands don't untap would be quite good in green, and give green something that it hasn't had in a couple years, which is just a straight-up card advantage card.
Harmonized is so good.
And it's interesting, right? It's real. It's insane in Modern, obviously, because you have 1 mana elves. But you can build your deck in such a way that the drawback isn't so bad.
I find this really exciting, this sort of discussion about what are things that Wizards has not allowed. We talked last week about things Wizards won't let us have anymore, and I think that this is a really neat way to give us things that, we can't have because they're either too good or too cheap, but to kind of tack on this really interesting cost to them. I think this is a neat topic, and I look forward to seeing what else is there if there's more cards like this. And I'm also interested other people think. Like, what would you like to see that you think we can't have anymore that maybe we could if we followed this template?
So Evan,
dude,
2 mana, 3 dudes, seriously, your lands are
3 dudes, seriously, insane.
Yeah,
that would be insane. However, what is not insane, and what is on that standard showdown carousel for what I feel is the reason, because it's the only other planeswalker in the set, is Samut the Tested. It is a green, red, and 2 generic mana mythic planeswalker. It has 4 starting loyalty, so it's 4 mana for 4 loyalty. Okay. +1, up to 1 target creature gains double strike until end of turn. -2, Samut the Tested deals 2 damage, divided as you choose amongst 1 or 2 target creatures and/or players. And -7, search your library for up to 2 creature and/or planeswalker cards, put them onto the battlefield, and shuffle your library. This card has brought me a significant amount of sadness. Disappointment, anger is a word. A lot of anger, because it's bad, and it kills me how bad this card is. It hurts me in my soul. It hurts me deep down in there, because you're telling me that Arlen Cord was supposed to be like, oh snap, it's getting real. We have a werewolf planeswalker who's super. Oh, wait a minute, she's bad, and no one plays her ever. So we've had the period of time that allows for them to see that Arlen Cord is not that good, and here we are with a Sarkhanval 3 whatever of just sadness. +1, a guy gains double strike. Are you kidding me? Are you assault strobing me for 4 mana? Okay. That doesn't protect her. You can Fork Bolt for 4 mana. That feels like you just kicked yourself in the groin. I don't know. I can't. I don't understand, because the first 2 abilities are what most people are going to care about. The ultimate is cool, and I'm going to explain it here in a minute, but the first 2 abilities I just can't. If the first ability gave them double strike and vigilance, at least
or
then
trample.
You can make the argument, okay, well, first of all, double strike and trample can end the game. All right, that's very powerful 4 mana. Or double strike and vigilance will let her be protected by the guy that just went like, boop, go. But no, 4 mana can only protect itself with a Fork Bolt, and then you're spending 4 mana for a Fork Bolt.
Yeah.
There's a little. All right, so before I hand it off to you guys, I will legitimately say I think it's pretty sweet. Her ultimate plus doubling season could literally be a deck in Modern because you play doubling season, you play Samut. Samut suddenly goes to 8 loyalty automatically. You -7, you go get another Samut in something, and then you ultimate that one. You get another Samut in something, you get another something, you get another Samut in something, and you get 2 other super awesome things, and you just go freaking nuts and crazy. And ladies and gentlemen, that is when you have to take off your hat because you had to keep your hair in because you're traveling to magical Christmas land. And when you're getting there, you just can totally mess up, your grill.
Exactly.
Your whole makeup. But so that is cool. That is legitimately sweet to be able to, Samut and that's really sweet. And watch me let all these things and I kill you and it's like tooth and nail all over again. Great. Terrific. This card is terrible and it kills me. It hurts me. Now I'm not asking for Mind Sculptors. I'm honestly, I would be happy if it was just Arlen Cord 2.0, where you're like, maybe that's okay. Maybe it's a wolf, whatever. Sometimes it transforms. That's sweet. That's fine. No. This guy, Samut, is just like, what happened? Somewhere along the way, I feel like there's going to be that story from the FFL or this thing that Wizards comes out with. It's like, well, at the very last minute, we thought +1 making like 2 guys or doing something else was just too good, so we made it as bad as humanly possible. We just we picked a card out of a common box with a salt strobe, and then we high-fived and we went to lunch. I'm like, I don't know what you did to Samut or what Samut did to you. No, it's just a whole thing. I mean, I can't. If you open it in limited, you're fine. You open it in limited, it's a Planeswalker, it's hard to deal with, it's going to do all right, Fork Bolt's okay, and then sure. But God almighty, I just can't imagine these are the cards you're trying to sell your set and get people excited about, and it's a 4-mana friggin' Assault Strobe. That's it.
Yeah, not wrong. I mean, it's not great, obviously. It's, this is, anybody remember what Dovin Bond does? No? How about Tezzeret, the schemer, as Tasty Snaggy's brought up? There's a long and illustrious history of real bad 4-mana, and not just 4-mana, but 2 colorless red-green planeswalkers. Sure. Without looking it up, name anything that Sarkhan Vol can do.
Isn't there a weird,
Take that as a no.
It'll threaten. It gives a threaten. It gives your guys +1/+1 and haste until end of turn. I can't remember. And it makes like dragons.
Has 5 abilities.
Who does?
Name one of them.
Who?
Arlen Cord.
Oh, I can do that.
Target creature gets +2/+2 in vigilance. Is that right?
Until end of turn, up to one target creature gets. Okay. It's a plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she can bolt something, and I think when she bolts it, she flips back.
Correct.
Or is it bolt and then
we did it. My point is, this is going to be the long and illustrious history of forgotten idiot planeswalkers. I mean, it's not horrifically bad. Like, it's no Tybalt, but in the pre-show I was saying this is very similar to me to Ral Zarek. It's a 4-mana planeswalker, comes in with 4. Has a +1 ability that is super underwhelming. For Ral Zarek, it was Toils of Night and Day, and for this one, it's target creature gets double strike. It has it's able to Johnny 2 bolts, whereas opposed to Lightning Bolt, this one is Forked Bolt. So obviously worse there, but Forked Bolt is still a serviceable Magic card. And then -7 is like take 2.5 extra turns, right? Either you flip 5 coins or you just get 2 free Planeswalkers, which is like 2.5 extra turns. So I mean. It's not, and Ral Zarek didn't really see any play either.
It saw a hair. It saw a very small amount. It was cute.
Sure.
Again, but this is the thing. I don't think she sees any, any. I mean, it's just like Dovin Bond, none, just 0.
Speaking of Planeswalkers, did you guys see the tweet that John Finkel made the other day where he said that Planeswalkers are and always have been a mistake and that they still haven't been done right?
Sure.
Well,
yeah, and it was like, that is some tea. Like,
get off my lawn. Magic was better when it was 35 counterspells and 2 rainbow fruits.
Also Stalking Stones. Also
Where's
Stalking
the
Stones.
lie, though? Where's the lie? Like,
he's not wrong. He's not wrong. He's just old.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was just a moment where I saw the tweet and I was like, hello. Like,
yeah, I mean, Magic's worse, but they make more money. So,
Magic, he put it all on
his opinion.
Planeswalkers.
I'm not saying I agree with the opinion. I'm just trying to distilled down to a nice concentrated John Finkel of what we're trying to get at here.
Right.
Which is Magic was better when we cast Upheaval and our opponents didn't get to play Magic.
Right. If only spells were better and I could Mind's Desire things. I mean, I don't know. It felt like there was a point. Well, first of all, Magic always needed Mickey Mouse. Magic needed a Mickey Mouse. We've talked about this. I've ranted about it before. And even, I mean, I got this from Wizards. I didn't just come up with that. But either way, you know, the fact that he's like, no Planeswalker has ever been okay. Like, no, you know, they were all bad. Everyone was a mistake. I'm like, come on, man. Like,
I'll tell you what, the first 5 were aces. I don't know how they did it, but they like figured it out with just Garrick and Jace. Like, they just did it. They figured it out, and then they should have just stopped, probably. But
well, I don't know if they figured out Chandra.
They didn't figure out Chandra. First Liliana was pretty mediocre, but they figured out a Johnny, they figured out Jace, and they figured out Garrick.
They did.
3 out of 5 ain't bad for your first swing at it. So.
This is true. And I mean, I think, and to me, it was most cool that Garrick was the best one. They made Garrick the best Planeswalker. The green one, like back then, back in the day, which we're now in back of the days of, I used to make Magic shows about Planeswalkers showing up all of a sudden. Now we're in back of the days. But back in the days, you know, green was bad. Green was just horrifically crap. And they finally got like harmonized and it's like, oh God, we finally got something. This is great. And then they got like the best Planeswalker. So that's really cool. And then fairies showed up. But green, black elves won the Pro Tour.
Right.
Just saying. But either way, Samut the tested. It was tested, all right.
Seems over-tested.
And she failed. She failed hard. Holy cow. This.
What is the score? So the other thing about Samut, drawing the attention away from this, Samut?
I don't know. I'm asking.
It is Samut
Sammy?
because I looked it up last week because I was like, wow, Samut sucks. And they're like, no, it's not Samut. I looked up, you know, how to say Samut, and that's how you say it.
Samut?
Samut.
Is Samut the bad guy?
No. Samut is the one who, when the Amonkhet story first started, and they were walking through Amonkhet, and it appeared to be perfect, and like Oketra was walking down the street, and there was like some sort of parade happening. Samut was the one that was sort of causing a fuss, that was sort of like the one to break them out of that, maybe not everything is so great here. Like, she was the one person that was like causing a ruckus, and I believe some guards were chasing her, and then she went away. So she's the voice.
I understand that she's the voice of dissent.
Yeah, and so Chandra was the one that was like, what's going on there? And so Chandra wanted to see what that was about, and then that turned into her and Nissa investigating things, and that kind of set the story in motion.
So we're gonna have an oath of Samut that costs a red and a green and does something.
No, it does nothing. That's what it does. It's literally a blank box that does nothing. That's how it works. And look, if she's bringing the ruckus, I need the entire Samut story as told to me by the Wu-Tang Clan. I need for Cash to rule everything around her. You know. And I need her to bring the ruckus because, Lord, she ain't bringing nothing right now. No ruckuses, no nothing.
No funk.
No Ruben, I'm a little upset though that you didn't really draw her name out like we're used to.
You just
Sammy.
Oh, Sammy Boom Booms. Well. So there was some other news that dropped today. Thank you very much, news organizations of the world, because you helped us with a big story that we needed this week.
Yeah.
Neverwinter and Star Trek Online developer announces plans for Magic the Gathering RPG, a massive multiplayer online role-playing game. Thank you, Chris Cox. This is exactly the type of thing that I feel... Yes, Aaron. This is exactly the type of thing that I feel that Mr. Cox has given us, has given the world, has taken Magic and said, hey, you know, developer who has clearly been able to make these types of games, could you make us an awesome, like, massive multiplayer online game with Magic? And the people who are not necessarily as excited as others, and I'm not saying there's P coming out, you know, that's my line, but I am definitely excited because look, just the idea of being able to, like, hang out in Zendikar is freaking sweet. The ability to go and, like, solve mysteries in Innistrad, like, that would be really awesome. Like, there is a ton of sweet potential here. The ability to go hang out in Ravnica, like, all of their big content releases are just right in front of them. Wherever they want to start, I don't know where they're going to start. Like, you don't want to go back to, like, you know, the crappy Onslaught stories or, you know, any of that stuff, none of the Judgment stuff. Let's leave that alone. But if you go basically into the modern era, basically from Lorwyn forward, imagine going to Lorwyn, you're in the storybook world, world, and there's those huge giants walking around. Like, there is so much that they can take. Whether it's story, whether it's planeswalkers, whether it's the worlds, whether it's the worlds changing. I mean, we start in Innistrad as Innistrad, and then later it turns into Shadows, and that's a whole other piece of content. Like, there are lots of ways for them to take this content and run with it, and there have been other Magic games. So for those who aren't aware, like Sony and some others kind of got a hair up their butt in the mid 2Ks and made some Magic games, and they were terribad, and then they went away because no one liked them. But that doesn't mean that this is not an intellectual property, a magical IP that people can't just cling to and just run with, because it's right there. All they need to do is take these amazing worlds that Wizards have already spent all the time to lay out. All that stuff is done. If you're a game developer, and I was reading somebody's sort of take on this as a game developer, which was part of the work of being in game development is that you have to work on story and characters and lore and the world and the look and the feel and whatever. Already done for you. Not necessary. But please, if I can just give my onesies, my one-time pleases on this new thing they're developing, could we not start with the Eldrazi? Could the Eldrazi come like 800 releases later? Because everyone loves Zendikar, not Rise, and everyone wanted Zendikar Part 2, not Rise Part 2, and they kept not giving us what we wanted, and that was really annoying. But I think this is incredibly exciting, and MMOs don't need millions of subscribers to be successful.
No.
If you've got 100,000 people paying $15 a month, I mean, come on, do some math, open the calculator. There's lots of millions of dollars there. It's something that doesn't need to be the #1 most played X, Y, and Z. It can just be an extension of the brand of Magic as we know and we love it. It could bring people in, or it could just make our game better. And that is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I come from an MMO background. I think I probably spent more time playing MMOs than I have any other game. I played World of Warcraft for 7 or 8 years. I started in vanilla. I played all the way through until Cataclysm. So I spent a lot of time there as a hardcore raider. I'm really excited about this. I think that people nowadays are... I like to use the term monogamous or monogamous. People play more than one game. Trick Jared even did a poll on Twitter the other day that was like, do you just play Magic? Do you play D&D? Do you play D&D and Magic? This is a really great way to sort of cross-promote. And I still have people who follow me from my World of Warcraft days that when I tweet about Magic, even though they don't play anymore, they'll still remember, like, oh, I remember who Nicol Bolas is. I remember when board wipes cost this much. I remember what Nightmare does. And so I think this is a really great way to get people involved from other games to sort of bring them to us, or maybe for us to go to their worlds. You mentioned the Eldrazi that you didn't want them to be first, though, but from a graphic standpoint, I think the Eldrazi would be awesome. I remember Deathwing being one of the last bosses that I fought, where it was literally on podiums, where it's like the claw is here, his body is here, and imagine what they can do with Ulamog, where you're looking at this giant 3D, you're down here, it's up here, how are you supposed to deal with that? I think that's going to be an awesome boss fight. Being able to work with planeswalkers like Sorin, Nahiri, what have you, characters from the lore that we don't necessarily get to see enough of, like Olivia Voldaren. There's a lot of potential here, and I find it so fascinating. I was thinking about this. For my entire history playing MMOs, I've always played healers. Like, I freaking love healing. But yet when I play Magic, I'm such a black mage, and I think that's so fascinating that I'm so different between those two games. Like, I can't wait to heal something. Like, I'm just like,
Liliana was a heretical healer. So.
She started out that way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just saying.
Yeah.
So,
like, I'm not a DPS class at all.
For those who are mentioning kind of things that could be against the game itself, MMOs come and go. MMOs live and die.
MMOs sure do die a lot. I mean, they they crash epically.
They really do. Or they do this thing where they get like a bunch of subscribers and then like, and it just and then it's dead in like 3 or 4 months.
Like
so
Galaxies or whatever.
I
remember Star Wars Galaxies was like a big thing for a while, and then I haven't heard anything about it for 5 years. So
as I recall that story, this is in like the early 2000s. Everyone became a Jedi on like day 1.
Yeah, of course.
And then everyone was Jedi. When everybody's a Jedi, nobody's a Jedi.
What When everyone's a Planeswalker, no one's a Planeswalker. See, this is one of my concerns with this, is that everyone's going to want to be Jace, because Jace is Mickey Mouse, right? So what are you going to do? Like, I mean, Zendikar is great until you're just like a dude hiking in the woods, and then you come across a Johnny, right? Like, that isn't that a problem?
Well, I don't think that you're going to be able to play as a planeswalker. I think you're going to be a planeswalker. Does that make sense? You're going, I'm going to be Evan the planeswalker, and I'm going to, start. You begin the game unlocking your spark or whatever. So the free to play thing is also another factor. All to most that I can think of, MMOs require some amount of payment later, not up front. But I would also note that we're in a game where we pay $10 just to play the 90s-esque program of Magic Online. Those people are just like, make a better Magic Online than do this. It's like, yeah, but this doesn't require Wizards to do much other than like license their IP and get a paycheck. So their work's already more or less done. They're like, look, see all these sets, see all this lore, see all this artwork, like go crazy. But there's definitely a risk here.
The ceiling is super high for this. Like, it would be great to be able to have some awesome crossover. I mean, my roommates play a ton of Elder Scrolls, and I see how popular Elder Scrolls is, and how like the cool stuff that you can do with Skyrim, and on all these other types of things that we're looking forward to. But the floor is pretty low too. I mean, remember the Magic movie and how we talked about that like this for a little bit?
Well, I mean, it takes time, it takes money, it takes risk. I mean, that's that's 2004 or 2014 rather. We were talking about the Magic movie, and it's just poof. It's just at this point, it's development hell.
From what I understand about Star Trek Online and Neverwinter, they're like really passionate about their IPs, and so like this is, if you're gonna do it, these are some good folks to do it with. Perfect World Entertainment and Cryptic Studios. From what I gather, are like, if you're going to do something like this, these are okay people to be doing business with. But again, MMOs are super tough. Like, maybe harder than movies to actually get going.
I work at CoolStuffInc.com.
Where you can get cool stuff
in stock every single day. I get to see a lot of board games, and I've been getting into board games. Board games are totally sweet. I love board games. Go get Ethnos, ETHNOS, Ethnos. It's an amazing game. It's brilliant. However, the Magic the Gathering board games came and went, and then came and then went, and then came and then went one more time. And in the middle of all that, Wizards gave very little attention. Hasbro gave very few marketing dollars. Not a lot of people cared. Now you can't hardly give those things away. And I want this to be successful. I wanted that board game to be successful, but the first release had like crappy looking minis that didn't really look like anything. And then by the time they fixed that problem, like I guess Wizards had like moved on because the Shadows over Innistrad board game stuff was really cool, but they just didn't really care anymore. So, I would hate for this to be like the MMO comes out and people are more or less disappointed or like ho-hum, and then they fix all of it or whatever in a sweet update. But by that point, Wizards don't care. Hasbro's not giving any money towards the marketing, and no one plays it, and it just dies a slow death. So there is definitely a scenario where they've taken products that were based on the IP and then just kind of like let them wither, and it's a big disappointment. So there's goods and there's bads, but I think overall it's great to imagine what happens if they do it right.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't come from a MMORPG background. I come from like a RPG background with paper and pencil, and I'm an old person. But but I have really high hopes for this because it's something I'm invested in already. I think that is the bridge for me to get into an MMO, would be a storyline that I'm already invested in and a connection to a game that I'm already interested in. And I think that that I'm not alone in that. I think that there's a ton of folks like Aaron who came to Magic through MMOs, and that would be a bridge worth crossing for them to go back to, and also something I'd be interested in trying for the first time. So I think it's definitely a natural connection to be trying to make something like this. I just hope that it doesn't get caught up in development hell.
I mean, there was some similar talk from the professor who made a video about a Magic the Gathering cartoon and how there needs to be a Magic the Gathering cartoon, and you should make
that'd be
one.
Sweet.
It would be totally sweet. You can do it. Like, at this point, there has been. I mean, there is sort of adult anime down to just like younger kids, kind of programming that these days I can't even say Saturday morning. It has to be like on Netflix that you would find. But I think there's sort of like the Justice League type feel. Sort of what I would just call like the Disney XD type stuff, where it's basically it's aimed at teens. It's got kind of that teen feel, like Star Wars. One of the new Star Wars cartoons that they have is very similar. But regardless,
Clone Wars.
Thank you very much. Yeah. If it was like Clone Wars, Sure, and like it's one of those where it's not adult, but it's not like kiddie.
I just had a brain image in my head of Jace instead of Jake from Adventure Time, and now I really need that in my life now. Of just it's Jace the Mind Sculptor and
I mean, well, first of all, look, you go and you put Allison Lures in charge of all the story, okay?
Yeah.
So you go ahead and let her just write that thing. Just put her on a mountaintop, and we'll see her in 8 months, and she just writes season 1.
Writing chops, so
Just saying.
Rebels, not Clone Wars.
Rebels, not Clone Wars.
Clone Wars was also good.
Sure, but when I'm that type of animation, that type of feel, and then Mike Linneman, God bless him, art, connoisseur du jour, is like, you think Wizards hasn't seen this or hasn't been pitched this, and I'm like, well, maybe, but Chris Cox wasn't at the helm now, wasn't it? You had these people who were like, Magic never goes without, outside of its little realm. You never cross the streams. You never do anything else with it. Well, now we have this MMO thing. Now we have this Magic Digital Next thing. Now we have the ability to take Magic and look at it in a different lens. We have these Hasbro-themed cards we're going to get at HasCon, which is going to be really cool. Like, we're crossing the streams. And what I thought was this MMO announcement, at first glance, the first thing I saw was, I was like, finally, D&D Magic books. I thought that's what this was at first glance. Just, I was like, oh, they're doing Magic D&D, finally. It's going to be insane. They're going to do a book with every release. They're going to do a small book with every small release. And we're going to bask in the fact that it's okay to mix your chocolate and your peanut butter.
It is not okay. I've still never had Nutella.
You've still not lived life. I get it. It's okay. It's all right.
That's hazelnut. That's hazelnut, though.
It is hazelnut.
That's not chocolate or peanut butter.
You know what, Ruben?
No.
What?
Haters are going to hate, buddy.
Yeah.
That haterade must be mighty bitter. Oh, with the jug of the haterade. We're going to move on to gathering the townsfolk. God bless us, took 45 minutes to get there. But Magic Online is having its 15th anniversary celebration, which is super cool. Over 15 years ago, apparently Lee Sharp was in his college apartment. Well, 15 years ago, I was kind of thinking about Magic, but I didn't really get back into it for another couple years.
How many kids did you have?
I had my first in 2002. Okay. So 15 years ago, her birthday is tomorrow, in fact.
Wow.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, to my daughter Annie, who's fantastic. She's going to be 15. Which means she's going to start driving, which brings me the fears of the gods. Lots of scariness is certainly involved in there.
You're going to love it when you don't got to go to the store anymore, though.
It's going to be great.
I'm fairly convinced that my parents only had me because they needed someone to reach things on the high shelves and get milk.
And thanks for the happy birthday wishes, all of you guys out there. I really appreciate it. I'm sure she does as well when I point these things out to her. But Magic Online, 15 years, as old as my daughter. What's they doing? Well, they're doing Battle of the Plains, which is actually pretty cool. Basically, their big event, they're doing some other stuff that we'll talk about, but their big event is this Battle of the Plains where you can do sealed deck with 6 different booster packs, all from one plane, essentially. You have Dominaria, which has the Onslaught block and Time Spiral block. You have Innistrad, which of course has the 2 Innistrad blocks. You have Mirrodin, which has the Mirrodin sets, and you have Ravnica with Ravnica and Zendikar. And that's amazing. And cool. the ability for me to play like Super Ravnica sealed, I think is awesome. Like that's the first one I'm in for Super Ravnica. Like let's do this. All the Ravnica packs. Let's cross our fingers and hope for like the Glare of Subdual action because that card is completely unbeatable. There's some really cool old cards. Obviously, you can open a Doubling Season, which is also really nice. Yep. How do you guys feel about these sort of throwback sealeds in block form, in plain form, really?
I love that. I think that's amazing. I think it's a super cool idea, and it's not competitive really, which I really like. Is that you sort of have this crossover between flavor and the mechanics of the cards, and I really am impressed with this idea. There's actually something similar. Not similar to this exactly, but you can sort of draft through the ages at GP Vegas, and be able to go back and get physical copies of a bunch of the old cards for booster drafts and stuff. And this is kind of similar to that. And I think this is a really cool idea that I'm probably going to enter. I mean, it takes a lot for me to play Magic Online in general. It basically takes a format where I find an archetype that I've fallen in love with and then just play that over and over and over again. And very rarely anything else. And this might be that something else where I'm just like, you know what? I feel like going back to Mirrodin today and just like get a Mirrodin sealed deck and, you know, try to have fun with that. So I really like this idea quite a bit.
So Aaron, after Innistrad, where are you going in these planes?
Yeah, there you go.
You know, come on now.
Yeah.
Like,
by the way, Mirrodin is my number one, by the way, because like you can play monocolor probably with all the artifacts.
Oh my god! Yeah, I'm all over Ravnica. Obviously, the most fun I ever had playing Standard was Return to Ravnica Standard, and so I regret that I was not around for original Ravnica. But this is sort of my chance to get a taste of that. And I'm kind of like Ruben. You said it takes a lot for you to play Magic Online. It takes a lot for me to play Sealed. But this is something I would totally do. I would probably do Ravnica first. And then after that, I would do Innistrad, obviously. Then maybe Zendikar. I'm not really a Mirrodin person. Like, I'm not Artifact girl. But Ravnica, I'm here for that.
So for those who are asking, it is from June 14th to June 21st. And I'm happy calling these all Super Innistrad, Super Mirrodin, Super Ravnica.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
The other thing about this isn't like the Blast from the Past leagues or anything like that. This isn't random. You choose your plane.
Yeah.
Which I think is a big deal as well.
And it's also, if I'm understanding correctly, it's also done in league format so that you don't necessarily have to, you don't have like 50 minutes to like build your deck. Like you can literally look at your packs, maybe have a friend help you build your deck, and kind of go from there, which really appeals to me because I'm not a great sealed player. So that's even more incentive for me to want to do this.
Oh yeah, I do sealed leagues online, and there is definitely a lot of like, oh my god, how do I build this? And then I do like the 5-color disaster, and then I'll try this combination, do the 3-color, and then I'll feel bad about it. Like I usually build at least half a dozen decks for every sealed pool, and every time I add a pack to it, it just at least 3 more.
Yeah.
Just to make sure. The way it looks, at least the way I understand it, there will be 5 different leagues for each of the different sets. I'm not sure of that based on how this is worded, but that's how I take it. So you're not necessarily going to play your Super Innistrad deck versus your Super Ravnica.
Got it. Okay. That's weird.
So with that said, you also only play 3 matches versus like adding packs to them, for example, which is what the current Sealed League does, which is interesting. Let's keep going here. So they are going to give you extra prizes for the extra prizes week for the Amonkhet draft leagues and constructed leagues, which is really sweet. So high five on more prizes. The Vintage Cube is coming back on June 21st.
Right, there you go.
Woo!
Interesting changes to the Vintage Cube, by the way. They took out all the temples and added the fast lands, which is interesting to me. No more Birthing Pod, so I don't get my pet deck anymore. But to be fair, Birthing Pod was pretty garbage in Vintage Cube. And they added a bunch of new cards. So you get Angel of Sanctions, you get Liliana, you get Sweltering Suns is an interesting addition.
Harsh Mentor is really interesting.
Yep, Fatal Push obviously coming in. So there's a bunch of interesting stuff that they're adding to the Vintage Cube, and obviously Vintage Cube will always get me to play Magic Online and just burn through tickets.
Oh, Vintage Cube's so good. So they announced also a couple of program updates, and it's always this weird double edge. Like, I'm so excited for this random new thing, and then the other was like, my God, we're in 2017. It took 15 years to get here. It's fine. Either way, you now have what is described as a full trade list binder. Currently you set up binders of things to trade with, and you have to go in and build those things, and you can have multiples of those, and that's fine. But it was difficult to just like say, could this be everything I have always? Because you didn't have something that was everything you had always. You had to go add the new stuff to the old binders or whatever. Now you will always have an option when trading of just like, do I just want to trade everything? Just let me trade everything. Or the binders that you describe. And so that's really sweet, and I certainly commend them on the ability that we can finally just say, I want to sell everything.
Yeah. Rich Shea had an opinion about the new Magic the Gathering Online binder stuff that I wanted to quickly relay. He said that I gotta find the original post. So he said that it appears that Moto's changing its trading paradigm. You'll start with all of your items tradable in every trade. Then if you want to have a specific trade binder used, you have to select it. I expect this will greatly slow trades and be a hassle. my prediction for the new Moto trade binder, you will have much slower trades. You will need to select your actual trade binder. You will need to tell the bot that you have changed binders and that it can begin to select items. So that's a little bit of a
yeah, but you got
naysayer attitude. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I guess, but I would note that it doesn't feel like that you can change binders while you're in the middle of a trade anyway. You know, that seems like a stretch. So
I'm just saying that he thinks, you know, that this isn't all sunshine and roses for this particular issue. But
sure.
You know, whatever. I mean, it's not like it's perfect as is. So if they want to try something new with the trade binders, then by all means.
So, and the last thing to know was that apparently they have improved some stuff around client performance, and if you were to drop, like, you know, one tiny packet out of your network that goes to Wizard servers, you don't immediately get dropped and feel sadness. I feel like this will help the Skydrafters a lot. You know, I like to, sometimes if I'm on a long flight.
Skydraft is great.
Skydrafting is really amazing. And with leagues, it's even better. That way, if you're playing lands, you're like, oh, sweet, I can play my third match, you know, sometime later today, which is really cool. But I don't know how that's going to play out in real life. That's one of those features. It's like, it's easy to talk about and easy to say how cool it is, but are you ever really going to even experience it? And if you do, you wouldn't really know if it was going to be worse the other way, because if they've improved it, you wouldn't know what you're missing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Either way, it's great that Wizards has a 15-year anniversary for Magic Online. I think the throwback, like, super seals are awesome. I hope that they are popular enough that they bring this stuff back more often. I will be the only guy who will shed the tears that there is no Super Kamigawa. You know what? If you just gave me 2 packs of every Kamigawa set, I'll be in a league of one.
We don't get Super Lorwyn. We don't get Super Kamigawa. We don't get Ice Age Cold Snap Block. We're missing a couple, but it's okay.
I'll take
Super Wrath would have been cool. Super Wrath would have been RATH would have been Tempest, Exodus, Stronghold, Mercadian Mask,
yes, I'm
Nemesis,
there for that.
Prophecy.
Wow.
Tempest is still my favorite set of all time. Yeah.
I think maybe that's
well, but it kept
going.
It
would be Invasion. It would be
right.
Invasion.
It kept going into Invasion, and then
so it wouldn't be Masks, because Masks takes place on Mercadia. So it would be Tempest Block, Tempest Exodus, Stronghold, and then Invasion, Plane Shift, Apocalypse.
There
we go. That's what I'm about.
We can hear that. All right, so moving on, there's some extra cards in our Devastation, and there were people, particularly Mishra's Photoshop, for example, on Twitter, who's just like, this number of cards in our Devastation is just sort of too high. There's way too many cards in this set. What's up with that? And Rosewater finally said, I believe those are just basic lands. For reasons to be explained soon, the set needed new basic land illustrations. Now, I'll bring them up here on the screen for you guys. So let me take a look here. AKH lands, there we go. And you can see here, basically, I'm not exactly shocked by, you know, original land on the left, destroyed land on the right. You know, original island on the left and River of Blood on the right. And there's the mountain on the left and the mountain on the right. And so... to get a little spoiler in today's story that was, again, amazing, you know, the fact that the Hour Devastation shows up, the fact that the big gates open, and there's no Nicol Bolas, there's just a wasteland, and oh, look, a demon. And then the demon shows up and is like, hey, I'm going to cut my arm right here, and you know that's going to be a magic card because it has a piece of art where the guy's like cutting, cut these little slices and stuff, and there's blood runs out, blood runs into the water turns to blood, oh my god, and then it says, like, I'm Liliana, I've been looking for you, or I'm coming for you, Liliana, or something like that. It's one of Liliana's demons. Oh my god, it's not Nicol Bolas, it's one of the demons. Clearly Nicol Bolas shows up later because Wizards already helped us figure that one out. But, you know, that was really sweet. And these lands essentially show you what happens after that first sort of, oh my god, we're actually in a wasteland, everything's going to die, oh my god, help us. Yeah. Which is cool. So that mystery has been officially solved, which is nice.
So you said that there were 15 cards, right? Yes. Wasn't that the number?
3 of each.
3 of each. Okay, that's where my confusion was, because I thought that we were going to do like a 10 Commandments, 10 Plagues ripoff, and then there were going to just be 5 cards hanging.
We were already down the Plague Street. You know, we already got some rivers
we
of
turned the
blood
river to blood. Exactly. So we're 10% loaded. So frogs next, right? And I could go for some frogs. Yeah, and usually Wizards does 4 lands of each, right, for each new expansion. So that's why I was confused. But yeah, that's a super cool idea.
Cool. So what we have here is next is a segment that we don't always get to do because we don't always disagree. However, this week in the Red Zone, we have ourselves a little conversation about a TCG player article. Now, Aaron,
it's not even me arguing this week. This is like a first timer where I'm just getting to sit back and watch you guys slap fight.
There you go. So, Aaron, it's kind of your bag. So you tell us sort of what you read and what you think about it, and I'll tell you when you're wrong.
Bless your heart. All right. So Bruce Richard, who I love, writes for TCG Player now, and he wrote an article yesterday called "What's in a Name? Commander versus 1v1 Commander." And at the top of the article is a tweet from my old boss, my favorite boss, and I don't recognize Evan as my boss, Adam Staborski from Gathering Magic. I see that sip of your drink there. And Adam's tweet says, 1v1 Commander is not Commander. This is your daily reminder. And this is something I feel very passionately about. I just recently started playing Commander. I have a Commander group locally that I really enjoy playing with. And when I first heard that the 1v1 leagues were coming, I was initially really excited. And I had taken just my lulzy kind of $60 Marchesa deck that I play with friends into the leagues, and I was getting destroyed. I was facing Ravens, Crime, and Life from the Loam. I was facing Leovolds and Windfalls. We clearly weren't in Kansas anymore, and I felt a little misled by all of this because when I think of Commander, I think of sort of the social contract that people like to talk about of, Commander to me is supposed to be lulzy. It's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to see cards that you would normally never see because that's just what Commander is. And, especially when spoiler season comes out, those cards that no other format would touch, Commander players get really excited about. And that was sort of the good time that I had in mind when I started playing 1v1. And come to find out, it's like some warped legacy vintage whatever the hell bagged cereal nightmare that people are really enjoying. And when I saw a friendly Commander, I don't feel that the games I've been playing were friendly Commander. And I didn't really know how to break that down into some intelligent conversation. And Bruce did a really good job of that. He's been a proponent of Commander for a while. Adam's been a proponent for Commander. And so it was really nice to see longtime Commander players agree with me that this is not Commander and we need to come up with a different name for it because other people like me are being lured into this thinking they're going to have this great time and playing this really spiky format, this very stale metagame, which is so not like Commander. The nice thing about playing Commander is you don't know what kind of decks people are going to pull out. They're usually different. And when you look at like the metagames on MTG Goldfish, you're seeing like large percentages of the same deck. I think Vial Smasher is like the top deck right now. Like, what is that? And so I agree. I don't think it should be called Commander. And I just don't think it's Commander. So.
All right. So is it a 100-card singleton?
Sure.
The answer is yes. Does it have a card? Does it have a card that lives outside the game that starts when the game starts?
Yes.
Do you pay for that card? And if it were to die, you pay 2 more for that card to play it the next time.
Sure.
Okay. Now, you do start...
You're such an ass.
I know, I'm terrible. You do start at a different life total, as I understand. Is that correct? I believe you start at 30 instead of 40.
Yeah.
Okay. In my opinion, clearly, it is still Commander. Why? Because it has all the constraints of the other Commander. Commander is not your life total. Commander is the construction of the deck. Now, granted, it may be boring. It may be broken. It may be dumb. It may not be what you expected, but it is Commander as we have defined Commander. Now, could it have a better moniker than 1v1? Maybe. But I don't think it needs to lose Commander because ultimately it's still a Commander thing. It's still a singleton with a thing outside of a legendary something or other that is going to tell you what that deck consists of or can consist of, which to me, we're talking letterish of the lawish here, where I feel dual Commander would at least be a bit sexier name, honestly, than 1v1. 1v1 Commander is kind of lame, personally. But I do feel it is Commander, and even if it feels like, just like you have, like, what Commander should be is always a hilarious thing. It's the same as what standard should be, what modern should be, what vintage should be. What is it supposed to be? When does it hit that point where you're like, dang, we've hit it, with the format's done, we're all good here, everybody go home, don't ever add anything else, we're finished. You know, like, there is some manner of flux between different social circles of what Commander is, what it isn't. There's ban lists that are different regardless of what Wizards has, regardless of what Commander or EDH, Commander.net, or whatever the original site for the Commander ban list was. Like, those things are all malleable and changeable. I did appreciate the fact that the original French Commander had that point system. I do not in any fashion expect that Wizards would ever have the ability to implement that point system in a way that wouldn't be weird and archaic and strange and hard to explain. So that sucks, because that reason basically makes the format super tutory, which means they kind of have to ban all the tutors because they can't meter it the right way. Which, when you have a point-based system and you say, Black Lotus is 4 of your 5 points, okay, I want to run Black Lotus, but now I can't run all my sweet tutors that cost 2 points each or whatever. The point is, I believe it is still Commander in that it is a singleton format with a Commander-S card. It has some amount of metagame, even if it's stupid, just like Commander. And if that's not your bag, just like Commander multiplayer ain't my bag, maybe it's not for you.
Oh, and I agree with that.
But if this is a branding question, I can't find a way to say that this is not Commander in terms of branding it as a format that when you think of Commander, what that means. Now, to you, it could very well mean it's super casual, high five, let's hang out and play some Magic cards. And Ruben's like, I like how Ruben apparently muted his mic because he can't stand it. It's so good.
I was muting my mic so that you guys could go, but then I was just like, Evan, you fell into a logical fallacy.
All right, let's go, buddy. Logic fallacy. Here we go.
What you did was, on a previous Red Zone, was vehemently argue that one-on-one and multiplayer were different formats, and did that extensively for the extent of the Red Zone. And then you just did the exact opposite just now.
This is about the fact that it's not Commander. I feel it is Commander. It is a different flavor of Commander, but yet it is still Commander. The whole shtick is 1v1 Commander is not Commander. I think that's BS. I think it is a different style of Commander. It's just like Standard versus Modern. It's a different style of constructed
Standard and Modern
Magic.
Are not defined by the spirit of them, though. Like the core, the reason why Commander was made was because people wanted to do something outside of the norm. They wanted to have fun. They didn't want to be fit into these boxes of, you have to play with the most recent sets, or you have to play with these limitations. The very core of the format was to do something, casual and fun that wasn't meant to be sanctioned. It was never meant to be competitive. That's the reason why you don't see, when you go to GPs, the prize support for Commander events is always terrible, because it was never meant to be competitive like that. And I feel like when you have these leagues that have decent prize payouts, that are encouraging people to be cutthroat and to be spiky, I feel like that goes against the spirit of the format in a way that other formats, it's like a sort I'm looking for. When you decide that you're going to do something, your motto or your, oh God, I can't think of the name of it, but you sort of set out and say, this is what it's about, this is the format, and Commander's very unique in that regard, and I feel like that is something a format should be held to in a way that the others are not. The other formats don't really have a spirit to them. You can be competitive in Standard, you can be competitive in Modern because they can be sanctioned. GPs are held in these formats, but I don't think Commander fits those standards, and I think imposing them really does the format a bit of a disservice, I think.
And that's fine. I get that. But you're wrong and I hate you.
I expect a check in the mail.
Signed to Ruben Breslin.
Yeah. Royalties, yeah.
Right. Ruben J. I don't know. What's your middle initial, Ruben? Just so I can know it.
V.
B.
What's the V stand for?
You're going to love this.
Victorious?
Vea.
Really?
Vea. My mom's maiden name. Vea.
You have way cooler
give
middle
it
name than
give it a
anybody else
shot.
ever.
Try and spell it.
Veija?
Veya?
No. It is Vaia.
You're Greek, yeah?
I'm Greek, yeah.
You're Greek. Okay, that's awesome.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Your middle
name.
name.
The 3 vowels in a row usually get people.
You know what my middle name is?
Evan. Yeah. I knew that.
That is awesome. But, otherwise, and for what it's worth, I did actually confuse French Commander with Canadian Highlander. So, sorry to the 12 people who play Canadian Highlander. Woo, just throw the shade. Just get this shit out of here. I just get it over here. Woo,
to fight one person, might as well make this a multiplayer fight.
Speaking of Commander, I just want to say that I will be at the Command Zone party at GP Vegas Thursday night, which will be a hell of a time. It was a good time last year. So if you have a fun, casual Commander deck and you would like to play with me, I will be there in the evening, and it should be a really good time.
And if you mess with her spirit of the format,
well, no, wait, hold on.
She will kick you in the spirits.
I do ask that, though. Like, I ask before I get into Commander games. Even my local game store, one of my local game stores started having a Commander event, and I even messaged them ahead of time, and I was like, are you guys terribly spiky? And he's like, we are incredibly spiky. And I was like, then I'm just not going to come to that. Like, I will usually ask if I see a pod forming, like, how they like to roll, because I still don't talk to the girl who introduced me to Commander, because she had a turn 4 infinite combo, lightning crafter, goblin surgeon, whatever, 4 years. I still don't talk to her because she completely ruined Commander for me.
Wow.
Look, I just want to say, if you go to mtgcommander.net, which is the home for Commander on the internet, the first thing you see is the following sentence. Commander is a Magic the Gathering format which emphasizes multiplayer play, social interactions, interesting games, and creative deck building.
Come on.
So it's a different world. Now, I think that branding is the issue here, and I have a couple suggestions for names of what we could turn 1v1 Commander into.
And this isn't even like the finisher. This is just what.
No, this is just me. This is just me coming up with some names. Master for Master and Commander, which I like a lot. I think that's quite clever.
That's a little 50 Shadesy for me.
That's fine. Duel, which you talked about, Duel Commander. High Noon Commander is one I like a lot. Face Off, and one from the chat, which is from MTG Dungeon. Suggested Samurai Commander, which I know Evan can get behind because that's Kamigawa themed.
I'm totally okay with Samurai Commander. I'm totally okay with a rebranding, but I think it absolutely has to have the word Commander in it. And this idea that it can't have the word Commander in it, I think, is a problem. When first of all, Wizards put lots of money and time building the brand of Commander, changing it from but they did because they changed it from EDH to Commander. Because it used to be you played EDH and it had a Commander in it, and they just changed it to Commander. So let's.
Can one of them be called Elder Dragon Highlander and one of them be called Commander?
No.
Rats.
Because unfortunately, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, has been put behind one of those terms.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is unfortunate. That said, we are going to turn the corner to the finisher. First, let's go ahead and do ourselves a giveaway winner. I'm going to go ahead and pull this thing up. We have finished the competition for a free copy of Archenemy.
Do us a winner.
We're going to do it. We're going to winner do it so much. Here we go. All right. We're going to pick us a winner. And who wants a free copy of Archenemy? Mr. Zach D, who follows Magic Mike's on Twitch.tv. Hey.
Nice.
Mr. Zach D from Norman, Oklahoma, which means I can actually send you one of these, which is fantastic.
Magic hotbed, Norman, Oklahoma, by the way. I don't know if you know how many. There's a couple of GP champs from that area, yeah.
Nice. Well, there you go. So congratulations to Zach, and as we do, well, ladies and gentlemen, magicians of all ages, next week is Grand Prix Las Vegas, and that means that we are a short 9 days from the first ever Magic Mike's filmed in front of a live studio audience, with all three of us sitting there together in the same room, and of course later broadcast live to tape like Saturday Night Live does it.
Yeah.
It is very exciting, but it's also a lot of pressure because you all expect the very best from us, the absolute very best.
Yeah.
So in order to live up to the hype, what's one thing we can do to make next week's live show extra memorable? Ruben?
Well, for next week's Desperate Ravings segment, Erin Campbell will be taking the podium for her presentation on why she's suing Paramount Pictures Entertainment for misrepresentation because she had to wait in line for 12 hours for last month's movie premiere of Baywatch.
And there was no
it was the wrong one.
Not even wrong.
Can I just say how many people tagged me in that Cardboard Crack comic about the Reed Duke wig? Thank you to everybody who tagged me. That's fantastic. Everybody tagged me. In next week's Red Zone, for one night only, live at the MGM Grand Hotel and on pay-per-view for $19.95, Ruben Bressler versus Evan Irwin in the grudge match of the decade to decide whether or not the Pro Tour trophies are in fact hideous.
They're hideous.
I'm
This isn't a debate. It's just sad.
I'll see you in the ring.
Yeah, buddy. Oh. This is where we get all nose to nose, and we're just like, what? And then somebody puts like a trophy between us, and then and then I sneer.
You got
and then...
the pay-per-view payers have to, get something.
And I use the Magic Mike's water bottle to you're sitting in the corner all beat up. Come on, you got to get back in there.
And then you pat our faces with magnets. It's weird. Well, let me tell you, June 16th, 2017, 1 p.m., Las Vegas, Nevada, the Westgate Hotel, GP Vegas, Magic Mike's, and the Electric Daisy Carnival present Magic Mushrooms.
Perfect.
Groovy.
That is going to be... It is during EDC, which is always a
Lord.
It is a little ounce. It's got a little ounce in there.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Bring me your glow sticks.
It's going to be sweet.
Yeah, exactly. There you
But
go.
that ends another episode of Magic Mike's. Thank you for joining us here to discuss all things magic. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. Come see us. Want to see you.
Next week we're going to be live in a place. Don't make it weird. Don't make it awkward, but no one's there. It's cool. No, we don't want that. It's cool.
Sure.
Please don't. Ruben, thanks very much for hanging out, buddy.
Thank you. I tell jokes into my mirror just for myself, so it'll be fine for me. But make Aaron and Evan feel more comfortable by having an audience.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, we will see you, fine viewers, live next week as we go to our final slide. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, my co-hosts Aaron and Ruben, and hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmikes. Visit our website at magicmikespodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters, or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people that we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv/magicmikes, on Twitter at magicmikescast, and on Reddit at reddit.com/r/magicmikes, and on Facebook at facebook.com/magicmikes. Talk to us privately at magicmikespodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmikespodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us in GP Las Vegas next week.
Not on Wednesday though.
Not on Wednesday.
No Wednesday show next week.
No Wednesday show, but there will be a live Thursday performance in front of the people who are there. I'm going to upload it thereafter. No pressure. God help us all.
Love it.
For another episode of Magic Mike's. Good night, everybody.